So the beta is obviously done and dusted now for the first weekend, and there has been plenty of little tidbits that we've learned over the last probably 24 to 36 hours from a few of the key developers over on Twitter. And I wanted to essentially give you guys a quick news roundup on all of the key info heading into the second weekend of the beta, as there is actually some really good news that I think most of the community are going to be really happy about. So without wasting any time, let's get stuck right into it. Now, the first thing that I guess isn't really even news, it's just something I thought was definitely worth mentioning, is that the second weekend build is going to be the same build as weekend one. So if you plan on playing on the second weekend as well, don't delete the file. It is going to be the exact same file. So that obviously saves you having to re-download the beta. Now, in terms of the content though, it is actually going to be a different batch of content. The good news is it is all of the same content from the first weekend, but on top of that, we're actually getting a little bit extra because we're also getting the Empire State map, which has no vehicles in Conquest. So it's a bit of a different feeling map. And then they're also adding Rush as well as Squad Deathmatch. So we're getting an extra map and 2 extra game modes on top of everything that was already there in the first week, which is definitely very exciting to have some different stuff to play, because even though it was only 4 days, it was starting to get a little bit repetitive just playing the exact same maps and modes over and over again. Now, I was there obviously during the LA event and we did get to play on Empire State, so having had some experience on this map, if you guys like these smaller, more chaotic maps, you're definitely going to like Empire State. A lot of people were saying it was their favorite map. Now, ironically for me, it was actually probably my least favorite map at the event. That being said, it wasn't bad at all. It's just maybe a little bit too chaotic because it is probably the smallest of the maps that we got to play. But that being said, having no vehicles, it does give the game a bit of a different feel as well. So like I said, it's definitely not a bad map, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit bigger, I know that a lot of people have said the same as my opinion about the maps we have received, is that they're all very sort of small and chaotic, which isn't a bad thing, but I think most of us like a bit of variety. Unfortunately, for the second weekend of the beta, that is not going to be improving, as we're actually just getting another even smaller map. But again, it actually plays really well. It's a nice looking map and everything, so it's not a bad thing. I just thought I'd mention that in case anyone was hoping that this would be a bit of a larger scale or more open map than the other maps. Now, this leads me on to my next point pretty perfectly, because there was a recent interview with VGC, or Video Games Chronicle, where the DICE design director Shashank Uchil claimed that Battlefield 6's maps will include a lot of different sizes and environments, and while a lot of them are suited to certain playstyles better than others, there is going to be a role for players in every single map. They said in that interview, we want to make a map that suits every type of player. They could be infantry players, so we want to make sure we have good infantry maps. Maybe a player who likes tanks, let's make a map that is good for infantry and tanks. They then said, you know what, I like helicopters, let's make a map for that. And then the jets, which they said they're really bad at, they want to make maps that cater to them as well. So that is all very good to know. I think a lot of the maps that we've played, if not essentially all of the maps in the beta, they've all been a little bit more smaller scale and chaotic and more meat grinder maps, which I think are fun in doses. But I was definitely hoping, I actually mentioned this in my previous video, that some of the other maps are going to be a little bit different, that they're not just all meat grinded, because I think that would get boring pretty quickly. But it's good to know that that is hopefully not going to be the case. The interview also carried on saying scale is not everything. Just because you have X kilometers, that doesn't mean it's going to be a good map, because then if you make a really big map, you're going to fill it with stuff, then it becomes more of an open world, and then you start compromising on a bunch of other stuff. There's also a tweet from David Serland that says that speed is a factor of map size, and that they picked the 4 maps in the open beta to make sure that they hit the full octane version of Battlefield on the head, and letting everyone know that they can handle that as well. He said large maps exist and the tempo scales accordingly. You'll be able to see soon enough. So for any of you who were sort of in the same line of thinking as me, that the maps that we have experienced, albeit they're very good, I actually really like all of the maps, I was just slightly concerned that every map in the game is going to be like that. And I do prefer when there's a bit of variety there, but it's good to see that that is going to be the case. Probably not for the beta, because like I said, Empire State is very much in the same line as something like Siege of Cairo, which again, really enjoy that map. But if you're looking for a slower paced map, unfortunately that's not going to be the case. But in the full game, luckily they've essentially confirmed that will be the case, and they're clearly showing off these smaller maps to show the sort of chaotic version of Battlefield to get us all excited. Now, there's also been some pretty big conversations, mostly surrounding David Serland again, in relation to the server browser sort of discussion and the persistent servers and matchmaking. It's been probably one of the most talked about things in the Battlefield community since the beta went live. But there are some interesting tweets here, like I said, from David Serlin that I wanted to run through now. Someone was sort of asking about the server browser and why it's going to be through Portal and why it doesn't really seem as though it's the same as the old Battlefield games. And David replied saying, it's a server browser. It contains servers. Some are custom experiences, some are verified, which is what most people are looking for on this topic. The combination of the pool of the persistent servers and the spun up ones is not very useful. Talking about essentially the old school way versus the new school way of just clicking search and it sort of spins up a new server. He then went on to say matchmaking servers spin up in seconds, getting filled with players, and spin down after the game is over. That couple of seconds plus when servers lose a lot of players mid-game is the only time you can join, which makes it a tricky combination and full of queuing to join issues. We think the current setup gives us the best of both worlds, as you can choose to go spin up a server through regular matchmaking or find an existing server that is already running or create your own as well. We'll soon be testing the server browser so you can experience it. So that little bit at the end there saying we'll be testing the server browser so you can experience it. I'm not too sure if that means one of two things. Either A, they're going to test it out in the coming weekend of the beta, because saying that we're going to be testing it soon seems like that would make a lot of sense. Or the other alternative is that potentially this could point to actually having more betas in the future. My assumption was that this second weekend was going to be the end, and then we essentially will have nothing other than obviously Battlefield Labs, which is still closed to a lot of people. And there would be nothing until the proper launch of the game. But this could potentially point at more betas and more playtime in the lead up to launch, or at the very least, they may potentially test that this weekend. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. I was planning on making a video on that topic pretty soon, but I think now I'll essentially wait until they implement it and we can actually try it out before I make a proper judgment, because I do have some concerns, but realistically I should just kind of wait and see how they actually do it before having a big sook about it. So hopefully that is live in this weekend of the beta. I don't think it will be, but it's going to be interesting to see nonetheless. Now, the final thing that I wanted to touch on as well is that there is some investigation going on into some of the time to kill issues, as well as something referred to as super bullets, which is essentially where you just kind of randomly die, or you're dying very quickly compared to how you feel you should be dying. For example, sometimes you'll just like run around a corner, someone will kill you with an SMG, but it feels like you've just died in one bullet, if that makes sense, which kind of links into the time to kill issue as well. Now, I've had a lot of comments saying the time to kill is perfect and we don't want to turn this into like a bullet sponge shooter and stuff like that. And I do get that, but I think that there are clearly some time to kill issues if the developers are speaking about it like this, saying that they need to investigate it because there clearly are some things going wrong. So whether any of that is fixed in the second weekend of the beta, I highly doubt it. This is probably the type of thing that will be fixed hopefully by launch or not too long after launch. They can obviously do more testing through labs and stuff like that, but I'd be pretty shocked if the time to kill is like fixed by this second weekend, albeit hopefully that can be the case, because I'd love to see how the time to kill up close should actually feel compared to how it has felt, where in my opinion it is just a little bit too quick, at least in close quarters anyway. I think at mid to long range it's fine, but in close quarters I definitely feel like sometimes I just go around a corner and I'm literally dead. They've killed me with an SMG or something, but it felt like I literally got shot once and I've died. And even on the flip side, I feel like sometimes I'm killing people so quickly, which when it's me doing it, I don't really care that much, but it's still a little bit unfair to those players as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. And lastly, on that topic, they have also confirmed the shotgun is getting a nerf, which is good to see. The shotgun in this game is honestly up there as one of the more powerful shotguns that I've really ever experienced, other than like the model 1887s from old school Call of Duty and stuff. This thing is an absolute beast and it has way too much range in my opinion. So it is good to see that they are going to be nerfing that. Again, not sure if that will really be done by this weekend of the beta, but I think that'll be interesting to see. If they can get stuff like that done so quickly, that's probably a really good sign for the game moving forward. So hopefully they can. I don't think that they will, but if we get to this second weekend and they've actually nerfed the shotgun already, that is a really good sign moving forward that they can hopefully get that sort of stuff done very quickly when the game actually launches. Now, just quickly as well before I head off, I mentioned in the previous video that this weekend I'm actually going to be in Sydney at Fortress live streaming the second weekend of the Battlefield 6 beta. So for any of you who are in Sydney, feel free to stop by the Fortress. Myself and a bunch of other Battlefield creators will be there streaming, and then I'm sure we'll be having a drink and sort of talking shit after the stream ends. So feel free to stop by, and obviously if you're not in Sydney, be sure to turn on those notifications. I would love for all of you guys to jump in the chat, roast me for being shit, and have a good time. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.